Hello guys, welcome all of you back with our database management system question series. Today is our second day on our question series. So let's get started. Here we have our question set number 2 description. The board of directors of Southern Production has decided to include all their company information into a computer software. The software was commissioned by Tiline Gantras Soft. You are the senior software engineer of this software development company and your team has been assigned to create the database. Create the database need to store information in this software. Here we have our 4 questions. First one is use Sandun Production DB for the name of the database. Create a table called employee to store employee information. Follow the instruction below to create it. Here we have our employee table instructions and our table name is employee. Here we have our column names, data types and the length. Our third question is create a table name product to store product information. Follow the instruction below to create it. Here we have our product table instructions. Name of our table is product. Here we have our column names, data types and length. Our fourth question is what are the steps you can take to store data repeat in the product table above? So let's discuss these questions one by one. Our first question is use Sandun Production DB for the name of the database. We can create this database using two methods. One is using a query and the second one is using the manual method. Here we have our query. In this query we have said create a database as Sandun Production DB. This is the name of our database we are going to create. And then in here we have said if not exist. So if this database is already existed in our database management system, then this database won't be created. If only this database is not presented in our database system, then this new Sandun Production DB database will be created. And also we have our second method as manual method. So let's go and see how we can do this practically. So let me show you how we can create a database using our manual method. In here you can see our available databases in our system, and when we right click on this local host, and then here we have our create new option. From here we can create on this database. After that this window is going to pop up. In here we can insert our database name, and then in here you can see our actual code that are running behind this screen. So after entering the name we can click on this OK, and it's going to create our new database. So let's run our query as create database if not exist Sandun Production DB. When we run this code, it's going to execute successfully without giving us any errors. If after we refresh our connection, here you can see we have our newly created database as Sandun Production DB. So let's go back into our questions. Here we have our second question as create a table called employee to store employee information. Follow the instruction below to create it. Table name is employee. We can create this table also using two methods as manual and using a query. Here we have our query that we are going to use to create our table called employee. First we need to define what database is we are using. So in here we are using Sandun Production DB. So we have said in here use Sandun Production DB. This is the name of our database. After that, in here we have said to create a table if the table do not exist in our this database, and we are given our table name as employee. Then within the opening and closing brackets, here we have given our column names and data types. First column as employee registered number, and the data type is vacha, and the length is 10. And then here first name column vacha also 45. Third column is last name and data type is vacha, length is 45. And the fourth column is gender, and the data type is vacha. Last column name is contact number, and data type is also vacha. So let's go and see how we can create this practically. So here we have typed our query, and then let's run this. When we run this, we didn't get any errors too. Let's click on our Sandun Production DB database, and here you can see we have our employee table. So if we double click on this, here we have our column names, data types, and length of our columns. So let's go back. Our third question is create a table name product to store product information. Follow the instruction below to create it, and here we have our instructions to create a table called product. We can create this table also using two methods as query and manual method. When we create this using a query, first we need to define what database we are using, and we have done this in here. After that, in here we have said to create a table if that table is not existed in our database as product, and here we have our column names and the data types. So let's go and see how we can create this table. Here we have inserted our query. Before we run this, let's see how we can create a table using a manual method. Here we have our database called Sandun Production DB. So we can right click on this and go to create new and then table. After that, here we can insert our table name, and if there is a comment for that table in here, and then we can click on this add button and add columns in here like this. So let's run this query. We didn't get any errors, so let's refresh our database. And within our database, you can see here we have our product table. When we double click on this table, here we have our column names, data types, and lengths. So let's go back. Our fourth question is, what are the steps you can take to stop data repeat in the product table above? First one is create a new table as brand with the relevant column in the Sandun Production DB database. So what this means is every product has a brand. Instead of installing brand details in the same table as the product details, we can take that brand details out of the product table and store in another table, and we can give unique IDs for the brands, and we can link them together to stop data repeat. Okay, the second one is update brand table by changing brand ID column into a primary key. Yes, after creating our brand table, new table as brand, we can give it a column as brand ID. It has the IDs for each brand name, and we can change that brand ID column into a primary key. So those brand names can be uniquely identified by the brand ID. Third one is store brand data in table. So after that, we can insert our brand data in that table. Then we can update our product table by changing product ID column into a primary key. So we have our brand table and we have our product table. We need a primary key to our product table. We can do that by changing our column product ID, which is in our product table, into a primary key. So the product details can be uniquely identified by those product IDs. Fifth step is update product table by removing brand column. So we can remove our brand data from our product table and we can add those brand data in a brand table. Then we can create a relationship between product table and data table, product table and brand table. In here we have a one-to-many relationship between these two product and brand tables. So that's all for today. Thanks all of you for joining with us. See you in our question set 3.